Well, hey everybody, it's Mick here. Today I'm going to talk about well pressure tanks. So I'm on a well where I live, and so that means I have a pressure tank in my basement. And if you have a well, you more than likely have one of these. And just kind of a word to the wise, it's a good idea to check your pressure tank at least annually to make sure that it's doing its job. And the way that you do that is you turn your well off and then turn some water on and run your tank to where it's completely out of water, to where no more water is pushing out of the faucet, and then your gauge should read just slightly below the cut-on pressure. So if it drops down a lot more than that, then you're losing pressure somewhere. The way this tank works is it's got a bladder in it, and the air pressure pushes the water out, so when your pump kicks on, it fills this tank so full of water until your gauge tells the well to kick off. And then when you use water, the pressure from that air bladder pushes the water down. And when it's functioning properly, your well is going to cycle a whole lot less. So when it's not functioning properly, then your well is going to cycle a whole lot more, which is bad on your well. It's not bad for it to sit and do nothing, and it's not bad for it to constantly run, but starting and stopping is really hard on it. And if you're a professional plumber and you're watching this, well, first of all, I don't know why you're watching it, but I'm sure that I might give some sort of bad information, maybe, because I'm no professional, but I'm trying to help those of us that are do-it-yourselfers out, so I'm offering what I know. So anyway, today I went and bought a new pressure tank, because mine is obviously bad. And the way I knew it was bad is I came down here, I noticed that my well was cycling quite often. I came down, took my little cap off here, ran the system down, checked pressure, and it was basically zero. So I aired it up according to the tank instructions here, and within a couple weeks it was back to doing the same old thing. So I've been fighting that for a couple months now, and kind of knowing I needed a new tank, and finally just bit the bullet and I went and did it. So let me go, I'll go turn some water on here and I'll show you what I mean by short cycling. So I turned a couple faucets on upstairs. You can see the gauge dropping. I think mine's set on 30, 50 if I remember right. You got a lower setting that kicks the pump on, and the upper setting, higher setting, kicks it off. But again, I only got 2 faucets on, and just sink faucets. So let's see how fast it fills up here. Yep, 30, about 50, 55 I guess. But see how fast that's dropping? It shouldn't drop that fast with only just 2 sink faucets on it. So that's how I know I got a problem, because I just filled this tank up, repressurized it just a couple weeks ago. So what I'm going to do now to replace this is I bought a new one. A couple things to note when you buy a new tank. First of all, I went to a bigger tank, because the bigger the tank you have, the less demand it's going to put on your well, the more time between cycles. So this was, I think this is a 28-gallon tank, and I went to a 58-gallon tank, I think, 52-gallon tank, something like that. So, but check your dimensions, make sure that you'll be able to fit your tank where you want it, and make sure you pay attention to your pipe size, because the different size tanks have different size outlets. So this is a 1-inch, this tank has a 1-inch outlet, and the one I bought is 1.25 inches, so I had to buy a reducer. Now I'm hoping that I have all the hardware I need to do this, but as in any plumbing job, you know how it goes. You got to go to the hardware store 2 or 3 times. So I'm going to keep my fingers crossed that I got everything I need. And so I'm going to go over to my electric panel here and go ahead and kill my well. And then I'm going to open my all my downstairs faucets now too, and I'm going to let this bleed down all the way because I want to try to have the least amount of water run out down here when I take this thing apart as possible. So that's what I'm going to do next. So while I'm waiting for all that pressure to bleed out, here's what I bought. I bought the Utilitech 52-gallon tank. So this one is almost twice the size. I guess it's about 2/3 the size of my existing tank. So I'm hoping that really drops down my cycle time. So we're going to go ahead and get this opened up and get it moved inside. So here's my new tank out of the box, and they are pre-pressurized. They're pre-charged, as you can see, but you still want to check it and make sure that your pressure is 2 psi below the startup pressure. Okay, so that low pressure, that startup pressure, you want it to be 2 psi below that. Not too hard to do. It's just a typical, just like you use for airing up the tires in your car or whatever. You use the same pressure gauge to check that, and use the same airline if you got a compressor or whatever to fill it up. I guess technically you put a bicycle pump on this thing if you had no other choice. So, and then the other thing is the only connection you have to make on this tank. Sorry, I gotta use 2 hands to put it on its side here. The only connection you have to make is down here on the bottom. So like I said, this tank has an 1.25 inch connection. My old tank has a 1-inch connection. So I bought a 1.25 to 1 inch reducer, and I'm hoping, if everything works out right, that I'll just be able to just use that reducer and everything should hook right up. But in the world of plumbing, nothing ever is easy, so I'm sure there'll be some difficulty somewhere. So that's where we're at. So now we're see how we're doing here. And our gauge is down to 0. So the other thing I'm going to do is I got my shut-off valve right here. This is from the tank to the house. So I'm going to go ahead and shut that off. That way I don't drain all the water out of the lines throughout the whole house. The only water I should get out of here when I take this apart is any water that's left in the tank, and then any water that decides to come in from between the well and the house. So I'm going to go grab a bunch of towels and stuff, just sure I'm going to have a wet mess down here, and we'll go from there.